Welcome to Stone Cold Stros. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. You can follow them on X at Palillo and at Josh Jordan 975. And in between our podcast episodes here, you can read their work covering the Astros, Texans, and Rockets over on sportsmap.com. On today's episode, the Astros' new look lineup produces the same look results as the Houston Astros muster just 5 runs over 3 games in Beantown. The division lead gets tight as Houston searches for answers. It's been 1, 2, 3 pitches you're out for Houston, but does it have to be that way? On the pitching front, Houston could see as many as 2 starters come off the IL over the next week or so. We'll talk about what that could mean for Houston. Did you know every 3 minutes an Astros base runner is called out on the base path? That's not a real stat, but it sure sounds like it is. Before all that, show your support for the channel. Hit like on the video right now. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we invite you to do so now. Click the bell for notifications so you know when new content drops. And as the kids say, comment for the algorithm. Charlie, Josh, welcome in. The series with the Red Sox was one that Houston fans went into with a lot of excitement following the addition of Carlos Correa and the return of Jeremy Pena from the IL. But it turned out to be one that we'd all just as soon forget. Following the series win against the Nats, the Astros get swept again, now having lost 8 of their last 10 games. Charlie, we start with you. What were your takeaways from a tough and, at moments, ugly series in Boston?
Well, since for Astros fans, the series was a killer, let me play Mr. Brightside. Hunter Brown was fabulous Friday. Wasn't enough to win the game as the Astros brain dead. What's dumber than brain dead? The Astros base running in that game Friday night, so they wind up losing in extra innings. But Hunter Brown, who'd been scuffling over his last several starts, that was primo Hunter Brown, who's going to be absolutely vital for the Astros down the stretch, along with Framber Valdez, who we can get to with a callow Framber meltdown inning of top-grade quality in the game on Sunday. So Hunter Brown, all right. Alex Bregman didn't hit any home runs, although otherwise he no doubt had a rollicking good time sweeping away the Astros. It's now 7-15 in their last 22 games. The season's going to have ebb and flow, right? 7-15 in the immediate aftermath of the 29-10 run. But, I mean, the worst of all of it is the Astros are now in 2 serious races because the Mariners are coming. They have a better team right now than the Astros do. Maybe the Texas Rangers do too, but it's the Mariners who are the clearer and more present danger. And then there's the wild card race in which the Red Sox now have basically caught the Astros if the Astros don't wind up winning the West. Now, at least the Yankees are in their own coma. The Astros are going to have to finish ahead of either the Red Sox or the Yankees in addition to one AL West team perhaps. And then you have whoever may pick it up some in the Central, right? The Guardians are right about 500. The Royals are right about 500. And then in the East, oh yeah, you also have the Rays still in the fringe of the picture. It's the starting pitching that concerns me now. The lineup just isn't really good. And let me just touch on this, and then Josh, I'll pitch it your way. Jesus Sanchez was a good acquisition. He's not a number 3 hole hitter in a quality lineup. Carlos Correa hadn't been a good player this season. Hey, couple hits in one game, the homer for the lone run on Sunday. But in a quality lineup, Carlos Correa is not your cleanup hitter. The only good thing about Sanchez Correa 3-4 is it pushes Walker and Diaz down to 5-6. So just a struggle all the way around. You look at the Red Sox, who have some frisky young talent, way better than what the Astros' young talent is. And I think a telltale on that is after all the transactions, the Astros send both Bryce Matthews and Jacob Melton, supposedly their top 2 prospects, to the minor leagues because they're not good enough to play at all. In the case of Melton over Chas McCormick, and Matthews just wasn't going to get any time at second base. And so the talent drain and the starting rotation pitching strain, real problems right now.
For me, they're just so wildly inconsistent right now. They go sweep the Dodgers and then get swept by the Guardians. And you had the sweep with the A's, but then you also had where the Astros swept the Diamondbacks. And then you have them getting swept here by the Red Sox. I mean, this is wild. That is a lot of sweeps in these last few series for the Astros. it's one way or the other very strongly for them. And it just shows you how inconsistent the offense is too. They've scored 2 runs or less in 6 of their last 10 games. So it's just feast or famine. And this one really hurt too. You don't even win one game in a series where you used Hunter Brown and Fromber. That's really, really sad. You at least want to get one of those games there. But hopefully you bounce back against the Marlins. If history's any kind of teller, maybe they'll sweep the Marlins and then here we go. But it'd be nice if they could kind of find some common ground here. You don't mind if you drop a game every now and then, but when you're dropping 3 or 4 games at a time, that's a really big deal. So they just got to get the offense back on track. One of my positives, though, is at least looks like maybe Christian Walker is starting to kind of turn into Christian Walker here. Some home runs in this series. He's starting to look a lot better. Last 30 days, he's hitting 253, so he's getting close to his career averages. So maybe that'll be a bright spot as we go down the final stretch here.
You mentioned the impotence over the weekend, and the Red Sox didn't even pitch Garrett Crochet. Right. They held him out through the weekend. Their ace pitcher, the Astros, purportedly caught a break, and then they go out and the offense is just futile. They are now up to 59 games this season in which they've scored 3 or fewer runs. All of last season, when they weren't exactly a battering ram attack all season long, 67 games in which they scored 3 or fewer runs. They're on pace to do it 85 times this season. And for a while, they had an incredibly, stupefyingly, unsustainably good record in games where they'd scored 3 or fewer runs. I think it was 18-26 at one point, maybe 19-27. Well, now they're 20-39. So for the last 3-4 weeks, when they don't score, they don't win, which is kind of how it's supposed to work. Game scoring 3 or fewer runs, it's something like 2-12 or 2-13 over the last 15. You're just asking too much, too often out of a starting rotation that now has Jason Alexander getting another start. Colt Gordon has been lousy in 4 of his last 5 trips to the mound. So Arrighetti coming back Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, you don't want to put too many eggs in his basket right away, but they need someone to give them decent innings beyond Hunter and Fromber in the rotation.
Yes, and we'll get to the pitching in just one second. I do want to stay on the hitting. Cam Smith seems to be kind of tied in to this slump a little bit because when the Astros were going, Cam was producing. Now, that's not to say this is all on him, but him going 6 for 62 since going back to mid-July is pretty alarming. We talked about it. The high point of the season was that sweep against the Dodgers in LA. And since then, Charlie, you mentioned it, 7-15, which includes 3 sweeps at the hands of the Guardians, the Athletics for 4, and the Red Sox in this past series for 3. Over that same period where Houston went 7-15, Seattle has gone 12 for 10. So not exactly setting the world on fire, but the Texas Rangers 14-8. I hate to be right there, but I think that's the more dangerous team when you look comparatively. But as you mentioned, Charlie, both are closing in on Houston. I want to stay on the offense, like I said, just for 1 second, because Jim Crane opened up the pocketbook at the deadline and allowed Dana Brown to make moves to help bring reinforcements to that lineup, which was playing over their head with guys like Cooper Hummel and Zach Short. But days like Sunday are a sobering reminder of how Houston's aggressive approach at the plate can really play into a good pitcher's favor, as Lucas Giolito goes 8 innings, giving up just 1 run and 1 walk. Houston got 1 walk. Dana Brown said during the offseason that he had wanted to see the lineup have more patient at-bats and make opposing pitchers work harder. Apparently no one else got that memo. It's unrealistic to think that 2/3 into the season, Houston is going to change their approach at the plate. But at some point, whether it's sooner or later, do Astros hitters have to make adjustments, or is this team's current lineup just built to live and die by swinging away early in counts?
You really notice it without Paredes, right? He was so good at seeing pitches, and Christian Walker was one of those guys we thought would really help them with this when they signed him before the season started. But we joke all the time, right, Brandon? It seems like Christian Walker's down 0-2 in the count, like as soon as he steps into the batter's box. So I don't know how this gets corrected. At least Jeremy Pena, hopefully he's healthy going forward. With him back in the leadoff spot, at least you don't have Altuve swinging at the first pitch and getting an immediate out almost half the time. So I think that's encouraging. I mean, Correa, I think he's looked really good. Boy, he saw plenty of pitches the other day when he took strike 3 right down the middle with the bases loaded. But I don't know if this is fixable, Brandon, to answer your question. This is just a team, they swing out of their shoes. And the other night when they were asking Altuve after the game, like, what was the difference for you? You know, why were you able to have such a good game? I think it was after his 4-hit game. And he said it was about swinging at the right pitches. I got good pitches to hit. Yet you see in the following days, he starts swinging at pitches that are not close to being strikes. So I think it's just something you come to accept with Altuve. This is going to be an aggressive team. And it's unfortunate because if you're a pitcher, you love that. If a guy's going to chase a pitch and you only have to throw 1 or 2 per batter, and you get rolling and you get in the groove. I don't know. This has haunted them. I don't know how they get it corrected. Paredes is really missed right now because of that.
And among the question marks about the Correa acquisition, he's been walking this season at the lowest rate of his career. So it's not like you're dropping in a high on base guy into the lineup. And I want to call out one guy specifically who, frankly, has just been a massive disappointment this season all the way around. And if you're watching, I'm talking to you, Yiner Diaz. We're more than 2/3 of the way through the season now. He's drawn 15 walks. 15. Last season, he hit 299. So with a low walk rate, okay, and some power, okay. Well, this year he's sub 270 and been there all year, often well below 270. So the on-base percentage has hovered about 300, oftentimes been below 300. And the power numbers are all right, but nothing close to when he hit 23 home runs as a rookie. So Yiner Diaz hitting 5th and 6th is just not a good offensive player. And then let's get to the defensive side, where no one thinks he's supposed to be Johnny Bench or Pudge Rodriguez, but he and Caratini, and it's not about all the catchers, they can't throw out anyone trying to steal bases. Opponents are 90% success rate trying to steal bases. And again, pitchers need to hold, but neither Diaz nor Caratini helpful there at all. And particularly in that Sunday inning, Bad News Bears, cue Benny Hill theme inning, where Fromber unravels at a wild pitch, a balk, a fielding error. Well, in the middle of that, Yiner's catching balls like he's wearing a frying pan instead of a glove. Turn your hand once in a while. One pass ball, the other that could have been scored, a pass ball. And we know his framing rate numbers are not good. Right? Yiner Diaz looked like a guy who could be an absolute stud. He's still young enough there to round into form and get there. But he's been a real problem this season, and certainly as a never walks, as in less than once per week walks, low percentage guy, almost always hitting in the middle third of the lineup.
Yeah, Josh, you brought up JP3, and we talked about the vibes of the season, how it just seems like it is just they are fighting an uphill battle trying to get and keep guys healthy. Given the hamstring cramp that we saw in his return game, and of course he missed a game, were you guys surprised to see he only sat out the one game and then in his return game is back playing short?
But a hamstring cramp on a 68-degree night, or that was just kind of curious. And being the Astros, you hoped we didn't wake up the next morning, oh yeah, Pena tore his hamstring. But he was back in there, and how about he comes back 3 hits, his first 3 at-bats Friday, and they score 1 run and lose the game in extra innings. So did he just forget to hydrate? Was adrenaline, hyperventilation, excitement of being back running the bases because he got 3? That was just kind of strange, the whole sequence, and then being pulled after that the next day. But since he was back, I trust, as much as we can trust anything where the Astros and medical concerns are involved, that was just kind of a strange little moment. But you don't think guys are going to be cramping when it's 72 degrees out.
No, I found that really weird. And you guys remember when Altuve had the hamstring cramp and he missed like 1 game or something, and he was back, and we were wondering if Altuve would be out for a while, but no, he was right back. And with Paredes, remember after Paredes hurt the hamstring the first time after that game, he said, I'm playing tomorrow. And Espada's like, we'll see how he feels tomorrow. And then sure enough, he did not play that next day. But then he was back shortly thereafter, and then we saw what happened. He reportedly, we think, tore the hamstring. He's going to likely have to require surgery. We don't even know if he's going to be available next April. That's how bad this is. So, I don't want to be an alarmist or anything like that, but be careful here with Jeremy Pena. You see what can happen if you rush back a hamstring and it goes from being a strain to when it becomes a tear. That can be a big deal. So you got to listen to your players, but you also have to protect them. They're going to tell you they want to play. We saw something similar with Jake Myers, right? Comes back, the calf's bothering him. He says he's okay. He comes back, and he didn't even make it to the first pitch of the game. He had to get helped off the field. So be careful with these things.
And to tie it back to their on-base issues, Pena's another guy who doesn't walk, which has minimized its importance when you're batting 325.
Yeah.
But if the batting average tapers off and you're walking once per week, you're not going to get the on-base percentage you want out of a leadoff hitter.
Speaking of guys returning, Spencer Arrighetti appears set to return against the Marlins. Christian Javier, we think, has one more rehab start before possibly returning to the big club. I saw a tweet Saturday night on X from an account called Your Daddy that I think raised an interesting question. So I thought I'd pose it to you guys. He said he thought the future of the season rests in the hands of Arrighetti and Javier. So I'll pose that to you. Do you think that's true? And if not, how much do you think Houston's hopes of making a postseason run are tied to their success?
I think it's a simplification. But as I've said, and as we've been talking about, you can't do it over 162 games with a two-man rotation. They had tremendous work out of Brandon Walter for a while, and then his arm fell off. Colt Gordon got off to the surprisingly good start, doing a somewhat Dallas Keuchel impersonation. Well, the league's caught up to him, and just a general lack of stuff limits his upside. I think kind of like JP France a couple of years ago, where he was way over his head for a little bit. Speaking of names that maybe come back, but I wouldn't be well holding my breath hoping JP France flourishes down the stretch. So Arrighetti, Javier, and off in the faint distance, how would you put it, Brandon? Is that Luis Garcia's music? Actually, really? So they're going to need to get it from somewhere. For the what might have been, the rumble is the Padres said it would take Spencer Arrighetti and Bryce Matthews for Dylan Cease. If you're the Astros, would you have done that? Well, Arrighetti can emphatically say, good decision not doing that if he does contribute over these final 50 games or so.
Yeah, that's too much for a Renzel there. So I'm glad Dana said no. I think you're going to need Spencer Arrighetti. And I don't know if you'll find a bigger Christian Javier fan than me, but I mean, he's coming off of Tommy John, as Charlie's pointed out. Even before he got hurt, he wasn't pitching great. So I think a lot of this is on Arrighetti. So I kind of have to agree with that tweet. That's a big part of it. Now, if they do cement it and get into the playoffs, maybe not so much. Then I think you're counting more on Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez in those playoff games. Obviously, you will need a third starter, but you got to get there first, right? And we're seeing what's happening with the Mariners and especially the Rangers now. So you got to win the division. You got to make it to the playoffs to win a World Series. So Arrighetti, he can't get back soon enough. And Colt Gordon, JP France, a lot of these guys have these things in common where they don't throw that hard, right? So if they're not pinpoint with their fastball, living on the edges and mixing in their break and stuff, they're going to get hit all over the yard. You very rarely get away with a 91 mile an hour fastball that you leave middle. That you're going to get hurt with that kind of stuff. So unless they're on their game and sharp and pitching like Greg Maddux, they're going to get hit. That's what's nice with a guy like Arrighetti, and even to some extent with Lance McCullers, even though he hadn't been that great, at least he has a lot of movement. At least the ball moves around. It's a little harder to square up, but it's funny, Brand. We didn't even talk about McCullers, did we? That just occurred to me.
No, I don't think that's a realistic thought by anyone's estimation. And as far as expecting anything out of him, Brandon Walter, we'll wait and see. Obviously, the term elbow inflammation is a very dark, foreboding phrase when it comes to Houston and their pitching and their history. Charlie touched upon Luis Garcia. He's got that new arm slot, and following that TJ and the numerous setbacks, he's admitted that he's having some issues finding his release point with this new pitch, and he's having trouble pitching as explosively as he'd like to. So we have to keep our eye on that, because just because he's pitching doesn't mean he's ready to make his return. And it doesn't look like he's close right now, considering he's still finding himself. Final thoughts before we're out the door.
Interesting week ahead. The Miami Marlins are very generic. I mean, you can be a pretty solid baseball fan. Name 3 current Miami Marlins. Well, they started the season 25-40. Yep, they're the Marlins. They're a laugh track team in the National League East. Well, since then, the Marlins are 30-15. Only the Brewers have a better record in the National League. We're talking about well over a month and a half stretch. 30-15, the Marlins. And yeah, they traded Sanchez to the Astros, but they didn't do a big sell-off at the deadline. They're very unlikely to climb into the wild card in the National League. But 30-15 over their last 45 games, right? The Astros are 7-15 in their last 22 games going into the Marlins series. Then the Astros at the Yankees, who've been lousy themselves for a long stretch now, and the Yankees are in jeopardy of falling out of the playoff picture entirely. Meanwhile, the Mariners this week are home for the White Sox, who stink, and then the Rays, who are trying to hang in the wild card race. And I'm sure Randy Arozarena wants a crack at bludgeoning the Rays when they get to Seattle. So the schedule this week strongly favors the Mariners, who are obviously lurking much more closely in the Astros' rearview mirror than they were 3-4 weeks ago.
For me, just kind of on our previous conversation, these arm slots kind of changing. Lance McCullers, they kind of changed his arm slot too. Now that he's come back, he's a little closer to his body, and he used to be kind of out more, I think, kind of more like Arrighetti. And now we're seeing that with Luis Garcia. He's a little closer, kind of less movement. I wonder if the Astros are finding something there where they can optimize and maybe reduce possible injuries if a certain arm slot is more favorable. I wonder if that'll be something to watch going forward. I'm just kind of curious, because that can be a big deal, man. We talked about, Garcia having the issue with the rock the baby and having to ditch that from his delivery. Pitchers changing their release points, that matters. So that'll be something to watch.
Let me close with one more silver lining from what was a lost weekend. After going 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position Friday, 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position Saturday. Hey, Sunday they barely got runners to scoring position, so it wasn't a problem at all. 0 for 1. Correa solo homer, just 2 other hits or 3 other hits in the game. Once in the game, a batter came to place with a runner at second base. Of course, he made an out. It's not really a silver lining. It was kind of snark.
Going back to the Garcia thing, I don't know whether they've found something or not, but the hard flick action with Garcia's wrist and forearm really scares me from a guy who's just coming back from TJ. And it really looks like he's putting a lot of torque on that forearm, but I trust that they know a lot more than I do about it. But just visually, it's a little weird, jarring considering the way that he used to throw. And I guess my silver lining is that the Red Sox had also lost 10 in a row earlier this season, had fallen all the way out of the wild card. They've gone on this run, and now they're in the thick of things at the top of the AL. It only takes another extended run for Houston to stretch it back out that lead, and you hope that comes sooner than later. Just a quick message: if you're interested in advertising your service or product on this show, contact our friends in the sales team by visiting houston.sportsmap.com/advertise. The link is also in our description. And one last reminder that if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click like on the video. And if you listen on podcasts on apps like Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating while you're here. Next scheduled episode drops on Thursday, so make sure you're subscribed to this channel with those notifications on. For Charlie and Josh, I'm Brandon saying so long. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Stros.